Hello, and welcome to Coffee Time. Coffee Time is a space where magical humans come together for some real talk, strong coffee, and powerful introspections on whatever is top of mind right now. My name is Natalie, and I am your host for this channel and today's super exciting conversation. The idea behind Coffee Time is that you are in your favorite coffee shop, maybe cozied up with a book, and you begin to listen in on an intriguing conversation between folks at the next table over. For that reason, there is no big introduction. We absolutely let the conversation speak for itself. And if you do want to know more about these special guests following today's episode, I invite you to check out the show notes for more details. So, on that note, let's dive right in. Perfect. Okay, magic is happening.
Yay!
Yeah, how am I? I am good. I am tired. But overall doing well. Yeah. How about on your end? How have things been since we last spoke?
Good, good. It's been busy, which is good. But last week I was away on vacation, which was awesome.
Nice.
And yeah, good time to just, like just get everything straight again. I don't know. The beach does that for me. It's like that cleansing time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm going into the mountains next week. So that's
Nice.
what that will be for me. I'm definitely, yeah, I'm a mountains river kind of person, and we found an Airbnb that has a full kitchen, so we feel we can be like pretty safe going to, like not have to worry about being at restaurants and like all that kind of thing. And I'm just looking forward to like making good food and adventuring in the mountains and just being in solitude and all of that.
Yes, it does wonders for the mind, body, and spirit when you just take
Right?
that time to reset and regroup and yeah, not be in front of a computer. So I feel you.
Yep, absolutely. No, there is that for sure. I know I actually, on that note of relaxing, I had the best nap of my life this weekend.
Ooh.
Um, I had had some terrible sleeps, partially my own fault. My blood sugar went, like being diabetic, my blood sugar went really high. And when that happens, I normally have like really, really weird dreams, but then like super vivid and almost feels like a hallucination. But then at the same time, like I'm not properly sleeping because my blood sugar is just like, it's not good.
Mhm.
And so I had, yeah, wild dreams. I journaled on after. Some I think were more to teach me lessons. Like what came up was like this dream was a personification of my own fear as like a way to process something. And then I think I may have also had some visitors that I was dealing with. But then because of that, I was so tired. So Saturday, I decided to have a nap. But I decided to play some, what was it? It was like a guided meditation for the third eye chakra while sleeping. Like it was intended for that. And I don't remember anything specific from it, but I swear as soon as I turned on this music, I passed out
Mhm.
and my cat curled up between my legs and he slept there the whole time too. And the funnier thing was as soon as I decided to, because I probably just could have kept sleeping because I think the meditative part of the music just had me out to begin with. And then I was also tired. And as soon as I decided, like, okay, it's time, and I grabbed my phone and I went to close the YouTube app. And as soon as I did that, my cat just like sat up and jumped off and like walked away, like instantly. Yeah.
Amazing. Oh my gosh. Well, it's always so nice when you get a good little rest in, especially when it's a nap. Like it's like so invigorating.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you feel like you can conquer the world when you get some good sleep, because without it, yeah, it's not a good, not a good situation. But that actually just reminds me, I did a guided, it was a guided meditation to, you know, meet your spirit guides,
Oh,
and yeah, and I had found it on YouTube, and it's reminding me now because I did journal on it, like briefly. Like I didn't really journal on it. I just kind of jotted down what I remembered in the morning, but now it's making me, and so part of what came up for me was I don't remember like seeing any sort of guide per se, but there were animals that showed up. And so that's like, just, I need to go and like look up those animals and see if there's any sort of meaning. There was a fox and I feel like a turtle. I'm gonna have to go back and look at what I wrote down, but
Interesting.
yeah, yeah. I love finding new guided meditations to check out and see what happens, because all that stuff is cool. And the dream and write and journaling after a dream, it's always interesting to see what else comes out from that.
Yeah, I've had some interesting ones where I had an energy come visit and it was really bizarre. This was so my like, and I've shared about this a lot lately, but I kind of have gone through this like spiritual awakening all over again in the last 6 weeks, and it's been a lot. And I think it was a couple weeks in, I remember being, I don't want to say waking up because I wasn't fully like awake, like in the waking world, but alerted to an energy that was kind of hovering above me. And it wasn't anything scary, but I remember it being there. And all I remember is using its name, like, and I knew its name, and it was 4 letters and it started with a G. That's what I remember now. And saying name, not right now. And it went away. And that was it. But I remember at the time thinking, oh, I need to remember that, like, and trying to remember the name. But when I woke up, like actually woke up, all I could remember was the 4 letters and it started with a G. And so it was one of those weird experiences. Like, I don't know if you've done lucid dreaming, but when you lucid dream and you know it's not real, but it feels so incredibly real. And this was like that. And it was a real experience, just not in the waking world. Like, that's how it felt. And I had another visitor, I think it was similar to that another time. And so both times after this happened, and I had the sense that it was the same energy, I did a card pull as part of my morning journal about this dream. And each time I pulled the same card, which was also fascinating. And when I'd encountered this energy the first time, I ended up talking to a friend and they were like, oh, do you think it was Gaia? I was like, I don't know, who's Gaia? Like, I have no idea what you're talking about, you know, because I'm like, I kind of went into the deep end with all of this without learning all the like, you know, like the intro to spirituality, like 101 class. I kind of just like skipped over it and went for the like 4th-year seminar. And now I'm having to like backtrack. But the interesting thing was the card that I pulled, and I like shuffled the deck and like did all this stuff, but both times I pulled the card Maya, which is like grandmother of the earth. So that was a really interesting, maybe not proof point, but like correlation at least. I was like, okay, what's going on? Yeah, so because of things like that, I've been journaling a lot more on the dreams that I have to see what comes up. And I find normally when I let myself journal on it, I'll like describe the experience and just put that to paper. And then at a certain point, some phrase comes out and it's more like, what do they like free writing or whatever people call it. And it's a phrase and I'm like, where did that come from? But it makes sense of everything. And then I'm like, okay, I can put my pen down and like, this is it.
I'll do that after I meditate and just kind of put pen to paper and see what comes up. And there's usually some sort of short little sentence that it feels like it was divinely guided and, you know, coming through for sure. But your stories of your dreams makes me think I have two dreams that happened a while ago. One was when I was, well, a long time ago, when I was 16, and it was the night I later found out. I was in France, and I was traveling with a friend, and I wasn't with my family. And I later found out that the night that I had this dream was the same night that my great uncle had passed away. But he came to me in the dream and said, it was my grandfather, who I'd never met before, his face in the clouds, and then with my great uncle, and my grandfather was saying, everything's okay now, he's with me.
Oh, I just got chills.
Yeah. And I woke up and I remember thinking to myself, like, oh, next time I call mom, because I was only calling home once a week at that point. And next time I call her, I need to ask how Uncle Tony is doing. And the next time I called, I it just slipped my mind. I didn't ask. And then the following week I flew home. And when I got home, they picked me up from the airport, we got in the car, and then they let me know that he had passed away. And I was like, oh my God, what day was it? And it turns out that it was the same day that I had that dream.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, which was just wild. And that was, when you talk about like vivid, really vivid dreams, I mean, that happened 20 plus years ago, and I can still see it. Like it was as if it happened yesterday. It's still so clear in my mind. And I had another experience like that. It was it was a little bit different. I was driving home. I was pregnant at the time, and I was driving home with my husband and my sister and her husband. And it was restaurant week. So they had all been drinking because it was restaurant week. And I was, designated driver. We're driving home. This car comes out of nowhere, cuts us off. Like, we almost got into an accident. It was like really, really close. And, I was really worked up after that. It was super scary. And then that night I, went to sleep, and I had this dream of my grandmother who had passed away within the year before that. And it was so clear. And she was like, I'm not letting anything happen to you or that baby. And I saw her, and I woke up, and I think I was just hormonal too, but that I was like bawling. I'm like, it was real, she was here, like, oh my gosh. But yeah, when you have some vivid dreams, and whether it's spirit that you recognize or just, spirit that is there and you're not sure who it is, it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, it's a new one for me. I've had like lucid dreams and everything in the past, but not things quite like this. Mm-hmm. And I feel like at least the first couple, it was like training. Basically it was like my supports and my guides and that being like, can you handle this? Let's see, like, here's a way we can test it out. And so things were coming, and they kind of like gauge my reaction. And I remember I think the second one that I alluded to, what happened was something came, and instead of voicing like a boundary in my dream, I panicked again, because that's my default, seems to be fear. It's getting a lot better, but I was still very much in the energy I don't recognize, whatever you are, stay away kind of thing. And because of that, my voice froze. That's what always happens when I try to say like no or go away, is my voice freezes. But what came of that when I was journaling was that it was the same energy as before, presenting a safe opportunity for me to practice in. And I think I kind of failed the test, but that was it was pretty fascinating. And then the other day, it came more clear that some of it, I think, was real, like however you want to, describe that. And some was like practice rounds. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. It makes me want to go journal more on my my Fox experience.
And that's interesting too. Like I done two now, guided meditations to meet my guides. Mm-hmm. That sounds very redundant. And in one of them, it talked about like meeting your guide or guides, whatever shows up, and then they show you like a symbol. So I wonder if maybe it was a symbol, like maybe just see where it pops up. Was it us? I can't remember if when we first spoke, you told me about other animals that popped up in your life. That was some weird coincidence.
Oh,
am I right?
Yeah. So
okay.
When I was, reading, what book was that? Oh, it was Gabby Bernstein's book. The Universe Has Your Back, and how, she would ask for signs, and the sign that she asked for, I'm pretty sure it was the same thing that I ended up asking for. It was like, yeah, I'm not original. So sure, in her book, she was like, I'm pretty sure it was an owl that she asked to see to make sure she was making the right decision. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to ask to see an owl. And when I was deciding whether I should invest in this course or not. And yeah, I saw that owl multiple times. Like I kept on saying, okay, maybe you could just show me one more. Like it was like I wasn't believing it, Mm-hmm. But I'm totally a true believer in signs, and when you set the intention out there to get the message, that it will come through if you're open to it.
Mm-hmm. I think that's something we talked about before too, because I'm like of the middle ground where it's that kind of thing happens. And so I had a symbol that came to me in this meditation, but I was interpreting it so literal that I was like, who's going to present me this like wooden object of this thing? Like, this makes no sense. This is useless, guide. Like, what are you doing to me? But then I went to the park, oh God, 3 or 4 weeks later, and I was on the phone, and I was walking, and there was the same animal that had been in my symbol. And I didn't clue in at the time, but as I like looked into its eyes, I was overwhelmed by sadness and like this feeling that it had lost its companion. And I was like, where is this coming from? And like the person on the phone with me was like, you need to not worry about them so much. I was like, but it's so sad. Like something's going on. And I didn't clue in. And then I got home and was thinking about it. I was like, okay, that was the symbol, one. And two, I had just done like a, not really, I don't like the word ritual, but I don't know what else to call it, of trying to amplify and tap into my gifts more, and one of those being empathy. And so realizing that like I walked past this animal that was the symbol from this meditation and instantly felt what it was feeling, and I was like, okay, interesting.
Oh yeah, that's intense. That's
right.
Cool. Yeah.
And I feel too in that case, at least for me, because it's not like I was actively seeking this. Like, yeah, these things had been there somewhat priming me, but when you're walking at the park just casually looking around, you don't normally like stop to be jolted by the emotions of an animal. So right. So, like, that was like extra. On the other side, I'm also very much of the like, if you want to see a sign, you'll find one sort of thing. And so there's that balance, I think, in terms of like not letting or not choosing to allow signs or synchronicities to dictate everything we do. Because I think as much as we explore the spiritual in this incarnation, we still have like autonomy to an extent, and like we get to decide what we do with these gifts. And you know, it's not, you know, just because it wasn't this for me, but just because I see a turtle doesn't mean I have to say yes to the next 10 questions I get asked. Right?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think yeah, there definitely has to be that balance. And yeah, I'm remembering now when we talked, like it was like, you know, seeing numbers, how I remember you were saying like, oh, you know, people see the number 11, but you know, how often are you looking at your phone when you see the number 11?
Every day I see 555 because I'm always probably on the couch watching TV at 5:55. So I tap my phone like it's almost dinner time. Like, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, yeah, being mindful of that. But there is something really nice and comforting when, you know, especially when it's the, you know, off the wall kind of symbol that you have requested to see. Because then after that, I was like, okay, well, there's the book. What is the name of that book? Have you heard of this? It's called E.16 by Pam Grout.
I feel like you mentioned this last time, but I haven't looked it up yet.
Yeah, so it's a really cool book. So if people are interested in energy and, you know, kind of doing these little tests, I guess you want to call them or whatever, this is a really cool book that walks you through different energy tests that you can do, symbols and stuff. And it makes me want, and it's called 9 do-it-yourself energy experiments that prove your thoughts create your reality. So it's it's a fun read, and it's making me want to like read this book again. And I've been reading a lot of books again lately. I'm currently reading Mind Power by, what is his name? His last name is Kehoe. I'm forgetting. But
okay.
That's another a really good book. Same kind of deal about like how, you know, what you focus on expands. And so if you're focusing on all of the things that are going wrong in your life, which I feel like unfortunately during this time, you know, a lot of people are focusing on, you know, you see everywhere on social media, like 2020 sucks. And, you know, this is like, not that I don't agree with that kind of thing, but at the same time, if that's all you're focusing on, all the things that you're not able to do, it's just, you know, you get in that negative mindset and it brings on more and more of those feelings. Whereas if you focus on the things that you're grateful for, not only are you going to be in a better mood, but you're going to be that more aware of the things that are around you that make you feel good too. So yeah, that's another good book.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, attitude of gratitude, I guess, is what I've heard it called before. And I think with that, like you said, it's not to discount how terrible things are. And like, I feel like I can't speak into this fully, but I remember in like high school philosophy class watching a show on quantum theory.
Mm-hmm.
And it talked about that because it talked about like water molecules responding to thought and that kind of chain of events. And I'm wondering if maybe that's a bit of what that gets into. And it was fascinating, and I totally nerded out on it at the time and then never went back. But
Yeah, no, that's something. It is there. Yeah, there definitely is. There definitely is science behind that for sure, and that stuff it is fascinating. I mean, but there's like, I think that's why I like EFT so much, is because there is some science behind it, and you know,
read my mind. I was legitimately about to say that's why I think when you talked to me about it the first time, I really appreciated that it ties like energy work processing into one, like a tactile, like tangible practice, but also that it is backed by science.
Mhm.
And I think that's really important. Maybe could you like explain a bit about it for anyone who watches
Yeah,
might be like
yeah,
I was and has no idea what it is?
sure. So EFT also is called tapping, and it's EFT stands for emotional freedom technique. And so it's this process of tapping on certain points of your face and like chest and underarm, those 9 points. And those points are the end points of the meridians, and the meridians are how energy moves through the body. So when I'm describing it, I describe it like the meridians are you know, how the energy moves through the body, just like how, you know, veins, blood moves through the body. And when energy gets stuck, it can throw you off. And so to help that energy continue to move, you tap on these points while simultaneously speaking aloud what you are feeling. It's acknowledging, because a lot of the time it's like, you know, you will hear people say, you know, oh, just focus on the positive. Well, it's hard to focus on the positive when you're feeling negative, right? And so we can't just go straight into talking about the positive. So with EFT, you start by acknowledging how you feel. I think that's a big part of it, is acknowledging how you feel and where you're at, and it meets you where you're at. And so when I'm describing it, I also like to compare it to acupuncture, because a lot of people are more familiar with acupuncture. So if you're going to go to an acupuncturist, they're going to put needles into your body in certain points. And the points that they're putting those needles in, again, are the same end points of the meridians. You know, there's lots of them all over your body. But for EFT, we just use the nine main ones that are part of the protocol. And so you start off, and people, you know, there's lots of, and I have some on my website too, where you can tap along. You can do, they're called tap along videos. So if you, let's say, are, I don't know, overwhelmed, you're dealing with overwhelm, you could Google EFT videos for overwhelm, and you could find a bunch of them, right? And you would just follow along, tap in the same places where the people are tapping, and repeat the sentences that they are saying on each spot. But what I always like to remind people is what makes EFT the most effective is that if you're using words that resonate with you and your situation and what you are going through. Because if you're saying something that doesn't really resonate with you, it doesn't really help. So once you learn what the points are, you can literally just tap on the points and talk as if you're talking to a friend. You know, you can be by yourself, and I know sometimes that feels a little weird, like talking out loud by yourself.
I've gotten pretty used to it lately.
Right, when you're all alone, yeah. I know, I get it. But I'll go for like in my room or in my little meditation area or whatever, like when the kids are making me crazy. I'll be like, even though they're making me crazy, I love and accept myself. And so, and you tap on these points while you're saying how you're feeling. And a lot of the time, and you also, the other big thing is that you on a scale of 1 to 10, you rate how you're feeling. So if you're feeling really overwhelmed or really angry or whatever the emotion is, how overwhelmed do you feel on that scale? Just so that you have something to come back to, so you can see how it helps. So EFT can help with, emotions like that if you're feeling overwhelmed or angry or sad or anything like that. But then at the same time, it can also help with physical things. So if you're having pain, and I know that may sound crazy to some people, how can tapping on my body possibly help me with my back pain or my headaches or whatever? And I was very skeptical when I first started this, but I was dealing with a lot of TMJ pain at the time, and through this,
100%. I just touch here and I'm like in pain. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I mean, we should totally do a session on that. But like, it's when I'll just tell my story of me working on this and kind of this process of getting to because it's really, EFT is this process of really peeling back the layers. And I'll just give one analogy of how I've been describing it to people. So when you are either feeling really overwhelmed or really angry, right, or in a lot of pain, and all you can focus on the pain, it's as if you think of a camera and you're zoomed in on a point when you're trying to take a picture, you can only see part of the landscape, right? And the same thing when you're having that pain or feeling overwhelmed, you're only zoomed in, you can only feel the feeling. You're feeling the feelings out there, right? But then if you zoom out, and if you think of EFT as that process of helping you to zoom out, you can see the whole picture, or you can begin to have cognitive shifts and a new awareness of the pain or of the situation. And sometimes it just doesn't even make sense. Like, you're like, wait, I did a couple rounds and now my jaw doesn't hurt and I don't even understand why, right? That has happened before too. But yeah, so when I first started this and I was skeptical about whether this could actually help my TMJ, first I was just tapping on the frustration and anger of the fact that, like, I'm dealing with this pain every single day and that it's limiting and irritating and I can't eat certain foods that I want to eat comfortably. And then that anger, I realized, like, oh, I'm pretty angry because my TMJ started after I got my wisdom teeth out. And when I got my wisdom teeth out, the doctor had to dislocate my jaw to do so. And that is why I have TMJ. Yes. It was terrible. So I have I realized, and I think obviously I was pissed at the dentist that he did this. But like, it's like 20 years later now and I'm still pissed. Like, I didn't realize like how angry I still was about this. So then I'm tapping on the anger that I have for the doctor, right? And which then led me to feeling, I felt betrayed by the doctor because he did this without me realizing. And I'm sure I signed my life away before I went in there, but I had no idea, that this was going to happen. And then that betrayal hops over to another time where I felt betrayed by a friend, and I had never made the connection there. But once I made that connection of that same emotion that I was having, but in a different area of my life, the pain, I mean, it has been significantly better. I always used to have to wear a night guard every night so that I wasn't grinding my teeth. I don't have to do that anymore.
Wow. I've almost I've only had mine a year, maybe not even. And there's points where you can notably see that I have already started to grind through it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have lots of questions about this. But
I mean, you can put me under the microscope on this. That's fine.
Well, I mean, like, I feel like it would deserve a full session. And that's something with EFT. It's like you can, which I mean we can totally do at some point, because like I feel like that's the thing, that I'm so passionate about this work because it has helped me. So not only did it help me, so once it helped me with my TMJ, I was like, whoa, like
what else can this do?
Right, like this is crazy. And then it was also, my husband went on deployment, and I was dealing with a lot of anxiety, worrying about him, and then having to take care of the kids by myself. So it really, really helped me through a tough time as far as anxiety and overwhelm. And so just how much it has helped me personally is why I went through the whole process of getting certified through EFT International, which was an amazing process, and I've learned so much, and it's an honor for me to be able to have sessions and help people to work through, whatever they've got going on, to feel better, because we all deserve to feel good, and sometimes we just need a little guidance along the way, and it's not like I'm guiding the process, but like the person is really doing the work. And it's when those cognitive shifts happen, it's really cool to watch, because sometimes it's lots of laughing, because energy moves in different ways, right? Like, so sometimes it's lots of laughing, sometimes it's crying, sometimes it's like it's anger, so it's like it comes out in all sorts of different ways. But then once there's that kind of aha moment, you can see it, and it happens so much in these sessions, where it's this like, I only can describe it as like a lightness. It's like this lightness of energy on their shoulders. It doesn't seem to be weighing them down, and yeah, it's a really cool process.
That's amazing. And I actually, as you're talking, it reminded me. So I actually invited my mom into your group.
Good.
And I've seen her commenting on things, and it made me so happy, because she had shared with me, and maybe this will be valuable to someone else. So she was working with someone, and they offered to take her through, I don't want to share too much of her story, but they'd offered to take her through a guided meditation, but like a visualization meditation. My mom can't picture things. Like, she's very aware of this, and she tells people this. But I think sometimes people who can picture things, like in their third eye or wherever, think it's just, oh no, you just have to practice, or oh no, you just need someone to facilitate it. Some people legitimately can't. And so I felt so bad, because she, like, my poor mom, she's the sweetest thing ever. And she spent like an hour or whatever sitting trying to visualize things when she knows she can't visualize things. And I was like, that's not your fault. Like, that practitioner, granted, they were like, they're great, and they're trying to help and whatever, but they weren't really meeting you where you're at. But that's when I realized, cat hair, sorry. That's when I realized, like, oh wait, like EFT, because if this was the result you were trying to get, and this is something more tactile that could help, and like affirmations or mantras or whatever comes along with it, like the phrases that are used, that's accessible. And like the tapping, I think even outside of the like neurological reprogramming that's going on through EFTs, I think that's right. Even outside of that, I feel sometimes like having that physical stimulus as something to force us to be present for the practice is really helpful. Like, someone who's learning to meditate, doing maybe not visualization, but a guided meditation versus just mindfulness meditation, or like start with journaling versus or going on a walk and focusing on breath, or whatever it is, but something more physical can help before we reach a point of being able to just like be present and, observe the thoughts. It's like, what are you talking about?
No, totally. And what I have been using it for a lot lately too is because whether I'm talking to a friend or a family member, and there is a lot of, like, people are going through a lot right now. The energy is heavy out there. And so I've been talking to people who are just they just, I guess I don't know. I'm like the listener. I'm the one that people come to like unload, right? And so when I feel that energy coming, or I'm sitting there listening to someone, I literally will just start tapping on the side of my hand, and I'm sitting, and my kids like know that I'm doing it too. Like if if something's going on and they're like, oh, mom's tapping, but I'm telling you, like, if I'm having a conversation with someone and there's some heavy stuff going on and I'm just sitting there tapping, it's a grounding practice for me so that I can really be there and be fully present for them, and at the same time not get sucked into that energy, because people will ask me a lot, like, how do you do this and not take on that energy? And I just, and being a Reiki practitioner too, EFT is different, because I have experience with Reiki, really feeling their energy in a way that does feel depleting to me afterwards. That has happened at times if I don't, do the necessary things to like protect my energy. But with EFT, I think because when I'm doing a session, I'm tapping right along with you. There's something about that is regulating my system so that I'm really staying present, and I don't take it on, which as an energy practitioner is great.
That totally makes sense. And I feel like that's probably more like in practice, but comparable to like when I go into my records, like I always do a protection first. Because when you're doing anything where you're getting vulnerable and there's an energetic exchange happening, like I feel not like a guard necessarily, but some sort of protection and grounding is really important to keep perspective through that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And there's all sorts of different ways to do that. People are always asking about that too. Like, how do you protect yourself? What do you do? And so I can share some of my favorite ways. So some of them are super simple, right? So like if, for example, if you know that you're going to go to a family member's house that can be draining on you, or, you can pretend that like at the bottom of your feet is a zipper, and you're doing the action of like zipping yourself up all the way up to the top of your head, and then back down your back all the way down to the floor. So you're making the zipper motion all the way around you. And it's this idea of that you're just zipping up your energy and that nothing else is coming in. That's one way. Another way is like pretending that you have on like a cloak or a robe, and you're just like, tying that thing shut, and
like
that energy.
No.
Yeah. And then another one is, I don't remember where I learned this one, but wearing, I have a necklace that has a mirror on it. And so wearing jewelry or some sort of something that has a mirror on it, and so it's this idea of that the energy that is being brought to you is just bouncing right off that mirror right back out. And so those are pretending that you or visualizing a ball of light wrapping around you so that it bounces off, that sort of thing. It's all it's simple things. It's just taking the time to do it before you're putting yourself in that situation where you are likely to feel the drain, or not that people do that on purpose, but yeah.
No, absolutely. I think, and I, at least in my last 6 weeks where I have got launched into all of these energy things, what I have noticed is where that took a longer time at first, it's now something that I can do in a couple of seconds. Like it doesn't have to take that long. And same with even like clearing my chakras and closing down my chakra. Like before I needed like a half-hour meditation to do it. And every so often now I still enjoy doing that, but it didn't take long for that to become like a 2 to 5 minute practice that I can just do without needing something to guide me through it. And I think it's
I have a fun one for that too.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So, and this is great if if you're familiar with all of your chakras and you know that you're having an issue in one of them, then you obviously can go straight to that chakra and do this practice. Otherwise, you can do it on each chakra. And the woman that I learned this from, she always said, like, if you start to feel like a little bit under, like you're getting a cold or something, a little bit under the weather, do this practice where you're clearing each of your chakras, and it'll make you feel better. So it's super simple. If you picture that you have a clock around your neck and it's facing out, right? And then you're going to take your left hand and go over, and I'm just going to do this over my heart. I don't know if this is going to be a video since this is, oh, okay. Yep. So the other way I like to think of it, or how she described it, is like as a choo-choo train, like going forward, if you picture the wheel going forward. Okay. So if this is, I guess 12, right? 12, 3, 6, 9. So I'm going counterclockwise.
Okay.
And you go counterclockwise, and making this circle over, each of the chakras. So I'm just doing it over the heart. And you do this for, she says 1 to 3 minutes, but you can feel it. Like when I do this and I've got something going on, like my hand actually physically starts to feel heavy, and then just shake it off. So it's like you're removing anything that's stuck in there, shake it off, and then take your other hand and then go clockwise. And that's like sealing in the good juju, right? And it's super simple, but I think it's also that process of just kind of slowing down, breathing, and taking a moment for yourself. I think that's part of it as well.
Absolutely. And I think that's an important point to make too, because like the idea of chakras and like feeling energy in my hand, like that might not make sense to a lot of people.
Right.
At the end of the day, if you're taking 2 to 3 minutes to focus on yourself with intention, that's probably not going to be harmful.
Exactly. Yeah. No, and it's another one that I like that's super simple. And this is one of Donna Eden's energy practices. Is just your energy should be crossing over your body. So it's just like taking your hand to your shoulder, pulling it down and over your chest to your opposite hip, and then doing that a few times. Okay. And if you're feeling tired, that's like a good one to try and get your energy up and going again.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I like these. I've been doing more like the bubble. That's been a good one. In different ways. I like this one meditation I found because it like, I don't know what it is about it, but the music is all mystical and it makes me think I'm in some like grand movie, like Lord of the Rings style. And they actually, the same people, it's like the Honest Guys or something. And they actually have like meditations in the Shire, like things like that. And I haven't done them all, but it's been entertaining. And it's like 5-7 minutes or like energy clearing and that kind of thing. But you mentioned Reiki. And so I feel like when we talked before, you said, I think you did Reiki first, or did you get into Reiki after EFT?
Yes. First, I was certified in Reiki, and that led me on the path. Okay. And I was like I went and got yoga. First I went and got certified to teach yoga, and that's really what started it all. Then that led to Reiki, which then led to EFT.
Gotcha. Okay. So, because I guess for me, like the big difference, at least in terms of approaching these things, and when I was starting to look into it, and like you and I had talked about a little bit, like Reiki, someone said to me, like, picture sending this green ball of light from you to this other person. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, how am I supposed to just do that? Whereas like EFT, like granted, totally, like not totally different maybe, but different practice, but it's tangible. And like visualizing a green ball of light moving from me to some other person who's not even here. Or like, what had the other person said? They said, put my hands over my cat and picture like a golden ball of energy. It just felt ridiculous. Like it did not make sense. But I'd be curious to hear if you're open to sharing like a bit of your experience with Reiki, and maybe if you experienced some of that at all, like how that shifted or how that has come up for you, if at all.
Yeah, so I got into Reiki because when I started at this particular yoga studio, I was taking this class from this one teacher, and she was a Reiki practitioner, and I was curious. Like I really wanted to try it, and so when I went to her, it was a wild experience. And that's what, I mean, I guess that's what my whole journey has been about. It's like, once I experience something that is whether it feels good or, the whole thing with my TMJ, whatever it is, once I have the experience, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this more. I want to learn more about this. So it was, I don't want to say like out of body experience, but like I could feel her energy coming through me. I felt like all sorts of sensations. I felt heat. I felt tingling. I felt energy moving, and I felt like there was a big like release of energy, and there was also spirit that came in, and like she could, because she clearly could connect with spirit, and she was relaying messages to me that were spot on. Yeah. And so that was like, okay, I don't know what that was, but I need to learn more about this. And so that's how it started. It started just simply because I wanted to learn more and experience it. And then, when I was going through the classes of becoming certified, it's like part of it was like Reiki, I remember it was in the first class, and we were doing this exercise of like raking the energy like down towards the subject there's person's feet. And then she was saying, you kind of like swirl it around and pull it out, and you might be able to see the energy coming out. And I was like, oh my God, like it was like a gray string. And then I'm like, am I like blinking? I'm like, wait, am I seeing things? Like, am I going crazy? You know what I mean? And I said that to her, I'm like, does it look like a string? And she's like, it can. And I'm like, oh my God, like, I don't know what's happening. Like it was wild. But I'm like, all right, the fact that I could see that the first time I'm trying to do this, I'm like, there's something to it. And then I was practicing on myself, doing Reiki on myself. And then I started practicing on friends, and messages started coming in. Like I had one session where there was this bird that was outside the window, and it was just chirping. And I'm like, I kept on saying, like, I don't know, like, I feel like the bird is here for you. And, this one was like one of my first sessions, which is why it stands out, I guess, in my mind. I don't remember all of the details, but whatever I said, she was like, she just started crying. She knew that it was like her grandmother. And I'm like, what is happening? Like, and so that's not to say that, spirit comes through in every Reiki session, but yes, I'm much like you. Like, it's very, it's kind of out there, right? And it's hard to explain. But all I can say is that, like, I can feel a difference when I have Reiki, and I've seen how, I've helped people that, whether it's, I had one woman who came to me. I had no idea that she was having any sort of physical pain. And this was a virtual session, because Reiki can be done virtually. And I got to her feet, and it's like, I don't know, I just feel things in my body. I don't know if it's just the ability to connect, with somebody else's energy. I have a hard time putting words to it, but I mean, I could feel the energy at her feet, and I was like, wow, I don't know what's going on. There's just a lot of energy at your feet. And, I'm doing that, what I was just saying, and kind of pulling it out. And then by the end of it, after the session's over, she's like, I was in so much pain. My feet were in so much pain before this. And now, and like, because she was doing all this moving of boxes up and down her stairs, and now it's gone. And I was like, okay, well, I don't tell people that I can, that's not something I ever say. Like, I'm going to make your feet feel better or anything like that, but the fact that, like, just moving the energy can help you feel better, whether it's physically or emotionally. And yeah, I don't know if that totally answers your question.
Well, I think you touched on something that is really poignant for me, but also really important, which is that, like, I think these experiences come up as proof points when we need them to, or when it's meant for us. Like, because, you know, you and I have talked about, like, you're really into this stuff, but also fairly grounded in, you know, it's not like you just go running towards ether. I don't know, like, you know, like, I like books, I like experiments, I like these kinds of things. And the fact that exactly, like, you had this experience seeing this string and you're like, is this real? Like, what's going on here? And took that as a sign to step forward into this. And I think that trust in yourself and that experience is really powerful. And I think that's been something I think I'm moving through it now, but definitely at the beginning of the last few weeks, and especially like since being a kid when my experiences with spirits and the like started, as I am now having to acknowledge because I can't ignore it anymore. I wasn't trusting, and like to an extent I think I'm still not, but it's getting better of like, okay, it's not that I'm working towards this, it's like I'm actually doing it, and here we are. And like with, you know, accessing the Akashic records, or like doing the meditations to clear my chakras. And I think it really is about, like, whatever the experience is, allowing it to tell you something about the path that you're on. And because I can doubt these things, I was gonna say till the cows come home, like, who am I? You know, right?
Well, you know, it makes me think, like, I had an EFT session with a woman who she was having like some physical issues, but there was also I think she was like really sad. It was a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think she was experiencing some emotion really really strongly, and then by the end of the EFT session, she was just like, she was blown away. She was completely blown. And you know, sometimes that happens in a session where you'll have this huge cognitive shift, and you'll surprise yourself, or suddenly the pain will go away. Doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes it takes, you know, several sessions to kind of peel back those layers and get to whatever the root of the issue is. But with this particular woman, she had a huge cognitive shift after just one session. And she was just like, I just need time to process this. Like, that's what she kept saying. She's like, I need time to process this. And I said to her, look, don't think about it too much, right? Because if you feel better right now, it doesn't matter why. It doesn't matter why you feel better. You just feel better. So just hold on to that. You know what I mean? Like, and that's kind of how I've always been. Like, don't go crazy trying to figure out why it works, because if it just works, that it just works. And if you feel better, that's what it's all about. So that's what I'm all about.
No, I love that. And that notion of just trusting our experiences, I think, is really powerful. And like, especially, I mean, I'm sure with EFT, you probably do a lot of work with like self-confidence and that kind of thing. And that's a big piece of it. And I hadn't thought going into this whole spiritual journey that would be such a thing. But it really has been. And I think especially because, like, even what we've touched on today talking so far, like, there's so many different practices and there's so many different viewpoints and experiences and labels. And if I allow those to frame how I integrate like soul and how I engage with this journey, it's finite, right? Like, that's not expansive if I limit my experience to these denotations that have been put out in front of me. And so I think it's been really important to, like, yeah, those are great. And like, you know, and like different modalities you might use might click, and like, absolutely, like Reiki, EFT, Akashic records, like whatever it is, that might be the thing. But also not like allowing that to limit our experience or take away from the truth of our experience, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And I think, yeah, that's just, I guess part of everybody's journey is figuring out what resonates, you know, what resonates the most and what feels best to you, and then having the courage to continue to learn about it. Because sometimes, you know, I mean, I probably thought about going through yoga teacher training for 5 years before I actually did it. And it was like, I was in this situation where I found out my husband was deploying, and logistically it didn't make sense for me to be doing it at that time. But there was something that pushed me that day. I was like, I don't care. I'll figure out all the logistics. Like, it's happening. And just trusting that, like you were saying, really just listening. And when you get those like soul nudges or little taps or little winks, whatever you want to call them, from the universe, and sometimes you need to get those repeatedly before you actually listen. But be aware, just, and trust yourself, and go for it, because I mean, at least I never want to like look back and be like, well, I wish I would have, kind of.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's so powerful and so important. I think that's been, at least for me over the last couple of weeks, like the biggest thing that I have learned through this journey is exactly that. And like, sometimes it's okay, like, as much as I'm talking about it here, it's like, sometimes it's okay to not want to share the things I experience as I'm kind of figuring them out and going with them. And I don't know if that's ever come up for you as you were getting involved in these practices, but I almost had to like sit with it and build my confidence around my experience before I could share, because there's always going to be feedback or other interpretation and all of that. And it's like, but if I know this, then, well, why do I need to open it up to that? Right. And then at a further point, I know it so much that whatever comes won't matter, because I know that this is my experience, if that makes sense.
Oh, totally. I think that sometimes if you share something too soon, it can, it can railroad you a little bit, because if you share it with the wrong person, or somebody who doesn't get it, or, somebody that's gonna be like, that's crazy, and, rain on your parade.
Yeah.
It's gonna stop you in your tracks. Unless you do really have the confidence, and I think I think that's the thing, is like holding things close to your heart until you really have that confidence to be like, I really don't care. It doesn't affect me if, my mom or my best friend thinks like that I'm crazy for thinking this or experiencing this, or whatever the situation is, for sure. Yeah.
Totally. Did you experience any of that when you went into this world?
Oh, 100%. Like, right? And I definitely, I mean, and some of my best friends from college were like, what? Like, I went to school for marketing, business stuff. And so when I started sharing all this energy work, and I probably did share it a little bit too soon. And I think I did, hold back a little bit after that. But I think what really helped me is that when I was also at the yoga studio, I was around a lot of people who were into this stuff, who believed in it, who didn't think I was crazy, and I think the more that I surrounded myself with like-minded people that, were encouraging of it, then my confidence grew. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that aspect of community is really important. And like, same thing, like knowing when to open up even to that community sometimes, but having people who, like, maybe they've had a different experience, but you can feel safe also sharing yours, and that they won't discount it or judge it or whatever that might be.
Yeah. No, totally. It's important. And it's important to have that community and those people that you can rely on, and, bounce ideas off of. And yeah, that's the fun part. I mean, because I love talking energy stuff, right? Like, I can do, I just love it. It lights me up, which makes me realize like, oh yeah, this is definitely, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing,
Yeah, absolutely. On that note, this might come out after the fact, but yesterday I recorded the final episode of my podcast, and it was because I'm shifting. So it's not to say there won't be a podcast, but the podcast I had is no longer.
Okay.
YouTube channel still a thing, but I'm making way for what's next. I think you're in the group where I may have shared details of what this all looks like currently, but as I was sharing it, I was talking more about these things. And it was exactly like I had to hold myself back from diving in, because I was like, I'm just going to be starting a whole new podcast if I let myself go too far. Like, this is supposed to be wrapping up. But as soon as I got talking, it just flowed. And it was like that free writing, just like coming out of my mouth, like word vomit. but it was so powerful and I like felt so good after. So I totally understand that. And I think just like all of these practices, like the thing that's coming up for me right now, like all these practices, the journaling, like the EFT, whatever, it allows us to sit in that like really healing, nurturing energy, however that's coming through, and to be able to do that with another incarnated being, we'll say, is such a beautiful, magical experience. And like I always say that, and I use this term loosely, but like like when we meet, like the space between us is where God manifests. And I think that's kind of it, like especially two individuals on this sort of a spiritual journey having unique experiences but kind of tuned in and intentioned in the same way. And when we hold space for one another, like that thing that manifests between us is just incredible. And that feeling of that energy, and not feeling all like warm and fuzzy, but that's kind of what it's reminding me of. And like building up a community of people who do that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what better way to spend time? Like, that's how I feel. So,
No, it's true. It just makes me think like magic. It's like a little bit of magic, you know?
absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat. I really appreciate like all of the unique personal experiences and anecdotes that you shared, because I think that is a really powerful part of this too, is being able to share that, especially to people who are new on this journey and like people who may be really new
Yes.
to
Yeah.
EFT.
No, that was so fun. I always love chatting with you. This is a lot of fun tonight. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, I hope you have a wonderful evening and I will talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of Coffee Time. Before you leave, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And if today's show resonated, I invite you to drop into the comment section and share whatever personal introspection came up for you today. Anything you can do to help make the show more accessible is super duper appreciated. Until next time, I am your host and coffee drinking companion, Natalie, wishing you a beautifully caffeinated day.